The North Country's main congressional district, covering the entire region except for half of Jefferson County, is deemed solid Republican by Cook Political Report. But if you throw in 4 candidates from 2 parties, some third-party lines as well, and some infeuding within the party in power, you could have a race that's impossible to call. We check in on the race to replace Republican Elise Stefanik on today's Story of the Day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from the Wild Center in Tupper Lake, dedicated to strengthening visitors' connections to the natural world. More at wildcenter.org.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Monday, May 11th. First up, 3 New Yorkers were on the international cruise ship hit by a deadly hantavirus outbreak. As John Campbell reports for the New York Public News Network, Governor Kathy Hochul says she's not expecting any problems, but she's preparing for the worst.
One of the New York residents is from New York City. The others are from Westchester and Orange counties. Governor Hochul says there's no reason for concern at this time.
But this is New York. It's a large, densely populated state and city, and I just need to do the responsible thing and prepare.
The New Yorkers are currently being monitored in Nebraska. The governor says it's not clear when they'll come home. 2 New Jersey residents were also among the 18 Americans on the ship. In Albany, I'm John Campbell for the New York Public News Network.
Legislative leaders are back in Albany working to hammer out a state budget, finally. It's well over a month late. Last week, Governor Hochul announced there was a budget deal, but lawmakers disagreed. They do appear to have reached a compromise on auto insurance reform. Samuel King with the New York Public News Network reports the issue was a key policy priority for Hochul.
Governor Hochul can count on a lot of wins in the auto insurance deal, including limits on payouts to those found to be at fault in crashes and tightening the serious injury threshold. The deal also prohibits insurance companies from setting rates based on education level or zip code and requires regulatory approval of all rate increases. Hochul says the changes will lead to lower costs for New Yorkers who pay some of the highest rates in the country.
We're also putting a cap on the excess profits insurance companies bring in, and making sure that New Yorkers benefit from the savings our reforms create, and not the insurance companies.
Assemblymember Jen Lunsford of Monroe County says she fought to get those insurance provisions included in the deal and agrees they should drive down costs. But she is still concerned that other aspects of the plan could harm crash victims.
Even if the person 51% at fault has a substantial life-altering injury, they get nothing, and the other person who broke their clavicle gets something. That just seems patently unfair.
The auto insurance issue drew heavy lobbying on both sides, from the insurance companies and Uber, who said the changes would lower rates. The New York Trial Lawyers Association opposed many of the changes. In Albany, I'm Samuel King for the New York Public News Network.
Residents of New York's 21st Congressional District will have a new representative for the first time in more than a decade next year. That's because 6th-term Republican Elise Stefanik isn't seeking re-election after she suddenly dropped out of the race for governor in December. There are 4 candidates in the party primaries next month, and there's been plenty of politics and drama. Our Champlain Valley reporter Kara Chapman broke down what's been happening so far with Northern Light co-host Catherine Wheeler. She started with who those candidates are.
We officially know who's going to be on the ballots. On the Republican side, we have Assemblyman Robert Smolin and Sticker Mule CEO Anthony Constantino. For the Democrats, we have St. Lawrence County farmer Blake Gendabine and Lake Placid restaurant owner Stuart Amorell. There were some challenges to Amorell's petitions to get on the ballot, but it was officially determined a couple weeks ago that he'll remain in the race.
Let's talk about the dynamics of both races so far. We haven't had a situation like this for years now, where both parties are looking for a candidate. What's it been like?
What I find really interesting is that both the Democratic and Republican sides, you have the establishment candidate and you have kind of a disruptor, non-mainstream candidate. So for the Democrats, Gendabine's the party favorite. He's got the backing of multiple county party committees. He's actually the candidate Democrats would have run in the special election to replace Congresswoman Stefanik last year. Of course, that never came to fruition because Trump yanked her UN ambassador nomination. Gendabine has described himself as a very conservative Blue Dog Democrat, and Emeril bills himself as an independent Democrat. He's got some more progressive positions. He supports universal health care. He's also been trying to engage with voters more directly, as opposed to working closely with the county party committees like Gendabine is. And he's also accused county party leadership, and also Gendabine, of being behind an effort to get him off the ballot by challenging his petitions.
Let's move on to the Republicans. Assemblyman Robert Smolin has become the establishment candidate and Anthony Constantino more the maverick. What's going on there?
Yeah, Smolin, he's your typical congressional candidate. He's a veteran. He's in state office. He's got the backing of a lot of the big players like the state GOP, the state Conservative Party, most of the county Republican committees in the district. And there are also dozens of elected officials who've endorsed him. Constantino is the outsider. He's self-funding his campaign. He's a political newcomer. He's frequently on the attack against his opponents. He said Smolin is a liar, called him an effing coward. He's actually said that if elected, he would have to, quote, clean out the Republican committees because they're losers.
Well, then there's the Trump factor. The president has bucked local party leaders and endorsed Constantino. What does that mean for the primary?
Yeah, Trump seems to really like Constantino's style, which makes sense because it's a pretty Trumpian style. Constantino has also allied himself with people close to the president like Rudy Giuliani and Roger Stone, and he's gone out of his way to show he admires the president, which we know the president likes. For example, Constantino put up a giant Vote for Trump sign on one of his buildings in Amsterdam ahead of the last election. But the endorsement is dividing Republicans and putting Smolin and his supporters in an awkward situation. That's because, on the one hand, they say they'll still support Trump, but on the other, they insist that Constantino is just not the right person for NY-21.
You mentioned that Constantino is often on the attack, but both he and Smolin have really sparred throughout the campaign, right?
Yes, they've both attacked each other over who supports the president more. Smolin's accused Constantino of trying to buy a congressional seat and profiting off of anti-Trump merchandise sold through his company. He's criticized Constantino for previously being a registered Democrat, calling him a wannabe conservative. Constantino's labeled the assemblyman as Slime Bob Smolin. He's highlighted Smolin's arrest on a felony tax fraud charge several years ago. He's also accused Smolin of misleading voters about his campaign finances. Last week, they were duking it out over some polling. Constantino had put out a poll showing him 25 points ahead of Smolin among Republicans, 51 points ahead among MAGA Republicans. Smolin's camp is calling that a push poll, and they put out a different one showing Smolin up by 10 points. Both polls show about a quarter of voters still undecided, though.
Do you think this back and forth is just for the primary? I mean, do we expect this to continue until November?
It could very well. All of these candidates could conceivably end up on the general ballot. Smolin is already the Conservative Party nominee. Constantino and Gendabine are both going after independent party lines. And that strategy isn't unheard of here in NY-21 because back in 2022, Matt Castelli was the Democratic nominee and also ran on the independent moderate line. Granted, it didn't really help him that much. It got him less than 4,000 votes, and he still lost to Stefanik by 18 points. We already have a couple non-major party candidates running as independents trying to get on the ballot. So basically, depending on how all this shakes out, we could very well have at least a three-way race in November. And as a reporter, I'll admit that's kind of an exciting, interesting thought coverage-wise, but not everyone thinks so. This district is still rated as solid Republican, but a split ticket is still a concern for the GOP because that's how the seat was flipped before. Back in the 2009 special election, the right-leaning vote was split between the Conservative and Republican Party candidates, and that's what allowed Democrat Bill Owens to win that special election and hold that seat for 5 years.
All right. We'll be ramping up our coverage of the primaries and hearing from all of these candidates in their own words. We've sent them a questionnaire, and we'll publish the answers on our website. Kara, what kinds of questions are on there?
So we did ask them some policy questions, but a lot of it is just about getting to know them, why they're running, how they plan to engage voters, why should primary voters pick them. We're also collaborating with WAMC, that's the public radio station based in Albany, on profiles of each of these candidates, and those will be coming out in early June ahead of the primary election, which is on June 23rd.
That's Champlain Valley reporter Kara Chapman speaking with Northern Light co-host Catherine Wheeler about the race to replace Republican Elise Stefanik in Congress. We'll have lots more reporting on that race in the coming weeks and months. We have more news all the time at our website, ncpr.org. Music today by B. Children of Canton and Evan Veenstra of Gananoque, Ontario. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.